and welcome back to another YouTube channel. So this week we thought we'd go through an interesting vehicle that's come into the workshop. Ben, tell them all about it.
Recent purchase for this customer, had an engine management light illuminate pretty quickly. I think he scanned it himself. I can't remember properly the story, but he scanned it himself. Loads of Misfire codes, and it's been back to the selling dealer, who've done a couple of bits and bobs. I think they've replaced the PCV, something like that.
We don't actually really know, to be quite honest. So as far as we were aware, the dealers tried to repair it. They've sent it off to whoever it is that they use locally. There's varying stories, but ultimately, the long and short of it is we spoke to the dealer on the customer's behalf, gave them a little bit of a breakdown. We'll go through that now, and fair play to them. I think within about an hour and a half, they'd authorised it. So I think what we do next, Ben, is sort of go through the process of how you got to a diagnosis and a solution. Yeah. So I'll leave that bit up to you.
So obviously in the first instance, we've gone back to, plug-in OBD diagnostics to just establish whether the codes that the customer had passed on were still relevant, I guess. So we've had misfires across all 5 cylinders and random multiple misfire fault codes. Gone straight in for coil packs and plugs, the most obvious. Taking, the plastic covers off the engine, we found immediately a lot of oil across the rocker cover, which obviously, starts some red flags. So we've gone to take the coil packs out and the spark plugs out to check further. Quite a lot of oil pooling in and around the spark plugs, which kind of led us down thinking maybe it's just, bad contacts on the plugs or whatever. We've had the plugs out just to double check even further, and we've put the bore scope into the cylinders while we're there, just to sort of double, triple check everything. And that's where really the kind of bad news starts. Yeah,
so just to let you know, we didn't actually fit the coil packs or the plugs or anything.
No.
We just made a sort of like a generalised assumption about where this may be going, didn't we? So just to let you know, we didn't fit them and then go, oh no, it didn't work. When we got to the point of seeing that it was quite damp, and that dampness could have been through other things as well, not necessarily what kind of found stroke assumed after we discovered that.
Definitely 2 separate issues. But ultimately, the kind of end result is gonna be that both issues are gonna get fixed as part of the same repair anyway. So it's kind of not the end of the world.
No,
but yeah, definitely two different problems.
So those wet plugs could have been seeping into the rocker cover, not from a leak from the rocker cover itself or any gasket.
There's quite a lot of oil on the top as well. So
totally on this instance.
Yeah.
But for those of you who've got oil sat on the top, it could be from oil pooling on the top and then falling in to the spark plug openings, couldn't it? So don't just think that just because we've mentioned one thing in a video that that's exactly what you've got and make a problem bigger than it maybe needs to be. So yeah, from there you did what?
So we put the bore scope down. Now, obviously, with the amount of oil we had on the rocker cover and around the spark plugs, there's naturally going to be a bit of oil dropping into the cylinders. However, in this instance, the bore scope images, which I'm sure we'll show you somewhere in and around here, you can see quite clearly that there is quite a lot of oil running into the cylinders from past the intake valves, so the cylinders are generally pretty wet.
So as an assumption off the back of that, we would assume that there is a failure there related to the intake valves, inlet valves, whatever anyone wants to call them. In terms of, it could be a number of things that have failed there as well, couldn't it? Which causing the oil, in this instance, rather than water, the oil to come in through those valves. Mm-hmm. So the next step, before I make any more mistakes and make this look like the right pair of idiots, carry on. What's the next bit? I'm going to leave this bit to Ben because I can't get my words out.
Well, we're going to make an assumption that we've got something along the lines of valve stem oil seals, maybe even worse, valve guides, who knows, but regardless, the cylinder head's going to have to come off.
Essentially, our recommendation was that we took the cylinder head off. Obviously, we couldn't charge the dealer for a water pump. We suggested the customer pay for that. So refresh cylinder head, about 358 quid, plus whatever. If this is completely toast, then obviously we're going to charge a surcharge for that. But then obviously the bot mod on top, which is the best part of 1,000 quid, then the cylinder head, and the customer's going to pay for the water pump. And we'll probably go back to the customer and say, listen, at this point, you might as well do an oil and filter change because it's a new car, and why wouldn't you for the cost of it? So what we're going to do next is we're going to get the vehicle on the ramp, we're going to get the cylinder head off, maybe take a quick look at the cylinder head once we've got it off and see if we can establish anything. It may be obvious. Valve stem oil seals, you may just look at them and go, oh, that's done. If it isn't, we might split it apart, we might not, but then we'll show you the refreshed head. It'll show you a bit of the block mod and a little bit of the process as well, and the water pump. We'll go from there, get it back running, and hopefully see this vehicle singing on song again, innit, Ben? So, as if by magic. Why did you do that weird thing again for the second take?
I just looked at you.
I know, but it was really exaggerated. Anyway, as if by magic, we're here with the cylinder head removed. I'm going to hand it over to you to explain exactly what we found, Ben.
So apart from the obvious issues with the cylinder head, which is why we're doing this in the first place, we've got good news. We've got some good news in that we've got no cracked liners. We've got bores that are in reasonable condition for the age of mileage. Serviceable, so we can carry on with the rest of the engine as is, thankfully. Yeah. We'll probably have a look at the cylinder head in a minute, see if we can find anything there. But like I mentioned yesterday, we've got a new oil filter housing. I think the selling dealer originally replaced that because they thought there was a PCV issue.
Is that despite me questioning it yesterday?
Despite you talking over me yesterday and disregarding my comment, Kind of that's it, really. We've maybe got a few little kind of advisory issues around the engine bay in general, as is with any kind of car of this age. But in general, we're kind of looking good.
Good to go. So we checked matrix hoses, we've checked generally the coolant hoses to make sure that they haven't started to balloon. It kind of looks like it might have had a thermostat, either that or it just is the fact that it's a 58 plate car and it just looks that fresh. The matrix hoses at the rear, they've still got the sticky label on them. Ben assures me that that's just atypical of a 50,000 mile facelift Focus. No issues with the right hand engine mount, that's something to check. The oil comes out of them and they sink in the middle. And then at that point, they might even split in half, might they, Ben?
They do sometimes split, and it just, because it's got a supporting cradle around it, it lets the engine just bounce around and it feels horrendous when you're driving. Yeah. But I mean, not at this kind of mileage, not normally.
No, definitely not. So what we might do is just go and have a look at the original cylinder head. I know it's something that I mentioned yesterday. This is in a few parts, and we'll bind it all together. That we may not have time to go through the cylinder head, but we have stripped it and we're going to take you through what we found. So, cylinder head wise, we're in the engine prep room, whatever you want to call it, and Al has actually stripped this cylinder head. I'm going to let Ben explain exactly kind of what we've found in slightly more detail. Over to you, Ben.
Well, the first most noticeable thing is once you normally remove the collets and the springs on a decent set of valve stem oil seals, the valves will kind of stay in place. These ones basically have just fallen, straight out. I think the head's been through the wash, so we can't really show you, where the face of the valves, because the difference between the inlet and the exhaust was quite dramatic in that there was, very wet on the inlet side. The head's been straight through the wash, otherwise, we just get oil everywhere. But I think the main thing we can actually show you is the difference between the valve stem oil seals that have been removed and a brand new valve stem oil seal. Is that the difference in size is just massive. I'm sure Mikey will get some decent close-ups to show that properly, but yeah, it's clear that they are done.
So these two here, that's the original Ford valve stem oil seal, and this one here is an aftermarket seal. Pretty much everyone uses them. Pretty much everyone uses Victor Hines ones. So you can see the difference in size. There's a little retaining spring around the outside. The rubber itself in the original is oversized.
They are actually the same brand. We can make out the part numbers and the manufacturer's stamps on the rubber there, so they are actually the same brand, regardless of whether they came from Ford or aftermarket.
Or in a Ford box.
Or in a Ford box at 4 times the price.
Yeah. So I think we can safely say that we found the reason for the oil ingress into the cylinders, and that'll be leaking past these valve stem oil seals. Clues in the name. So you join us on completion of the vehicle. Now, I'd love to say that this was plain sailing, but it wasn't quite that plain sailing, was it, Benjamin?
It wasn't. It fought back all the way.
It did indeed. So, last night, coolant pressure tested it, and don't think you were here.
No, but I've heard all about it, and I could probably guess. So, header tank hoses, pair. Did they leak?
Yeah, I think they had a pinhole. I didn't actually review the video, and I wasn't there when it was down, but I think we've got a bit of a clip, so maybe Mike will insert it somewhere. Maybe we won't. Not sure how clear it was. But those failed, so Al actually stayed late and put them on. It was here till gone 6 o'clock, I think, putting them on. Once we'd finally got authorization, we then got asked to put a bonnet lock on. I believe the reason being that the key was snapped into it by the previous repairer, but I'm not sure it's in the vehicle. Might check, might not. They authorised that anyway. Fair play to the dealer.
It just wouldn't open.
Okay, there you go then. There's the answer to that one. Don't need to check, it wouldn't open. So they authorised that. Fair play to them straight away. They've been brilliant all the way through, got to say that. We then tested it overnight. We got in this morning. So some news.
So another diagnostic ran on it. As per the original diagnostic, misfire cylinder 1, misfire cylinder 2, misfire cylinder 3, misfire cylinder number 4 and number 5, but no apparent misfires while driving.
So, as you drove it, the light was illuminating. After a while,
was
started
flashing.
Yeah. And light throttle and a heavy throttle, consistent across the rev range, harder on the throttle and going for it a bit more. Nothing, no murmur, no nothing, was there?
No actual misfire whatsoever, no. Also, just as an additional, we had, the customer had reported that we had a quarter boost problem that we hadn't even looked at. We hadn't even looked at until obviously we'd kind of satisfied all the other issues first. So
first thought was, well, have we got a wiring issue? So we checked first.
So we were thinking wiring loom earthing potentially first of all, but obviously the cylinder head had been off, so the earths on the rocker cover, we were happy, we were all good. So at the other end, onto the chassis, onto the wiring loom, we've removed all the earths, cleaned them all up, put them back on, greased them up for protection in the future, cleared all the codes, run the car down the road again.
All good, must have been.
No, but interestingly or weirdly, we did remove one fault code, and that was for the misfire for cylinder 1. So obviously we thought we were getting somewhere, but we weren't basically.
And they said add 5 new spark plugs,
yeah,
and 5 Bosch branded coil packs, not second-hand, no kind of like stick your hand in a box of used ones and pull them out. So we knew they were all good as well. So dealer had already agreed to pay for them.
He'd agreed to pay for them. Obviously, I think we might be able to show you, but they were absolutely caked in oil and potentially could have been contributing to the, to any problems originally. So the dealer, agreed to change them initially as well.
So to rule out the wiring harness, or to confirm it, we agreed between us, do you know what, this is illogical logic here, let's just clone the ECU and see what happens. We weren't confident, but it was a kind of decent place to start thinking. MAF sensors, if you unplug them with battery connected, they can sometimes get almost a form of amnesia, stroke Alzheimer's about how they work, and, cause issues within the PCM which cannot then be repaired, which is why we disconnect the battery to do that. It doesn't always happen, but it can do. So we changed it. And what happened?
Well, so basically, all fault codes would erase anyway, but they came back very quickly. But this was just like a night and day transformation. Although I know we said we had no misfires or anything like that present, the customer had reported a low boost problem, and on the first test drive after cloning the ECU, unbelievably, we had full boost again. And none of the fault codes actually reappeared, which is just, it's a first for us, that's for sure. Someone's probably seen it
not
before,
very often that we can say that, but a new one that we'd not come across before. So if you'd have been thinking about it logically, quarter boost, everyone would say boost control solenoid. At worst, you might have said, okay, maybe it could be the MAF sensor or something along those lines having an impact on the way in which it was running. In terms of the misfire, you would have said, well, coil packs, spark plugs, blah, 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 spark plugs wet, coil packs wet, all the stuff that was present originally. So you'd think that it would disappear, but no. So, long and the short of it is, after a fairly long and torturous journey on this one, it's only over 2 days, but still annoying, we've got there in the end. So we did prove that valve stem oil seals needed replacing because there was oil leaking past and it was visible on camera, on borescope and everything. So that needed to be done. So before anyone suggests that we completed a repair that didn't repair, incorrect. And secondary to that, we found a new issue that caused this misfire on top of that. Now, whether the first one would have ever, whether the first issue would have ever been found until it was next serviced, had this original issue not developed with the PCM, who knows? And then the customer would have ended up paying for it, then it would have been out of warranty. So there is a lot to be said for taking out the warranty. Especially there's a lot to be said from buying a used vehicle from a dealer and getting that implied 6 months warranty, 3 months, whatever you want to call it. Because things like this do happen. This is only a 54,000.
50-something thousand, which is another interesting point really about, everyone kind of preferring the low mileage cars. Well, valve stem oil seals, low mileage cars, not always necessarily, the best thing in the world. Lack of use can be as bad, as overuse.
100%. I've rabbited on for ages now, so I think that as we get our phones out and they stop ringing, I think that on that note, we will wrap it up for this week. If you've enjoyed this sort of content, then consider
subscribing to the channel, hit that bell icon to stay notified. Hit
that bell icon to stay notified. Comment down below if you've enjoyed this video, if we've bored you to absolute tears, or if you want to see more of it. This kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone in a different way from the way that we've filmed block mods or anything before. Hopefully it's been educational. See you in the next one.